My wife, Claire, decided on her 28th birthday to apply for a job transfer to a different town without saying anything to me. By the time I found out about it, the transfer request had already been approved. I practically begged her to think about it again. But Claire simply asked, "What difference does it make where we live, as long as we're together?" It absolutely made a difference. My biggest goal was to settle down permanently here in the city. She knew that, but it seemed she had completely forgotten. Later, I discovered the real reason she did it. It was for an old boyfriend of hers who was dealing with depression. "Life is much slower out there. You'll really enjoy it," she told me. "You should go ahead and quit your job now. We can move there together once we have the final date." I looked up at her and asked, "Why are you only telling me this now after everything is decided?" She replied, "I wanted it to be a surprise for you." A surprise? Then why did I feel such a sinking feeling in my chest? I swallowed hard, trying to keep my emotions in check. This sudden need to move to Havenwood, is it because of something else? An inconvenient phone call interrupted me before I could finish. Claire picked up her phone and walked onto the balcony to take the call privately. I have no idea what was discussed. When she finished, she just tossed a quick, "Something came up at the clinic, I have to run over there," over her shoulder and headed for the door. But she paused right in the doorway, then came back as if she'd suddenly recalled something important. Claire gave me a gentle kiss on the forehead. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Don't wait up for me. Good night, and pleasant dreams." The moment she was out of my sight, my eyes started to sting. As soon as Claire had left, tears began to slide down my face. I already had a terrible feeling about this as I got up and walked over to the balcony. I saw Claire's car drive out of the underground parking garage and then turn left onto the main street. That wasn't the direction of the clinic. That was the way to the hotel where her ex-boyfriend, the one she never quite got over, was currently staying. The only reason I knew about this guy was because my best friend, Alex, had accidentally mentioned him. Alex knew Claire as well. That day, I had taken a homemade meal to Claire's clinic. I happened to walk in while she was with a patient. The patient was a young man. Their conversation sounded totally normal, just a typical patient-doctor discussion. I was just about to leave the lunchbox and leave quietly, but Alex stopped me. "Isn't that the old boyfriend, James? What's he doing here? Don't tell me he's still hung up on her." Realizing his mistake, Alex immediately stopped talking. I gave him a meaningful look. After all the years I'd been with Claire, her friends were also my friends. Plus, Alex's own girlfriend was one of my closest friends. He knew where his loyalties needed to be. "Look, it's not a secret anyway. I guess I should just tell you," Alex finally admitted, grinding his teeth. And then he told me Claire's whole history. In high school, Claire had a major crush on a boy, the one we had just seen, James. James was in the liberal arts program and liked her back. They promised each other they would go to the same college after graduation. But soon after, their homeroom teacher found out about their relationship. The teacher was furious and called in both sets of parents. That's when everyone discovered that their two families were actually sworn enemies. It was an old family feud that started with their grandfathers and was still actively going on. So not only did their parents violently oppose their relationship, but Claire's parents actually transferred her to a completely different school. When it was time to apply for college, they even forced her to change all her choices. That night, Claire must have sensed that I knew about her past. She brought it up herself and explained why James had come to see her. She said James was suffering from depression and couldn't get proper treatment in his small hometown, so he came to the city to see what could be done. It was just a coincidence that she was on duty that day and ended up becoming his doctor. Worried that I might get the wrong idea, Claire promised me again and again that there was absolutely nothing going on between her and James anymore. She insisted that I was the one she truly loved now, and that James was simply a patient. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when Claire finally returned home. I had been thinking about everything all night and hadn't been able to sleep at all. When I reached over and turned on the bedside lamp, Claire's eyes widened slightly. "Did I wake you?" I shook my head and got out of bed to stand next to her. I smoothly took her coat, and sure enough, there was that recognizable smell of men's cologne. It definitely wasn't mine. It was James's. I have a very strong sense of smell, and I'd remembered it from that brief moment at the clinic, but I didn't ask her about it. Once a person starts being dishonest, there's no point in asking any more questions. Claire didn't seem to notice the expression in my eyes. She kicked off her high heels, put on her slippers, and asked casually, "Couldn't sleep? I'll go warm up some milk for you." "Don't bother," I stopped her, just as she was about to head to the kitchen. "I can't sleep because I'm thinking about what you told me tonight. This whole transfer to Havenwood thing is just too sudden for me, and I looked it up online. The living conditions there aren't very good." I paused, then continued. "Claire, couldn't you please reconsider? Or maybe we could just go to Westbridge, the city right next to Havenwood? We could always move back here after we have children in a few years. How does that sound?" I humbled myself, my voice sounding almost like I was pleading. I was hoping she would at least hear my concerns, but Claire blurted out, "I've already made up my mind. I'm not changing it." With that, a profound silence filled the living room just as tears were about to fall. I quickly looked down. Claire rushed to my side, quickly trying to correct herself. "I mean, we don't need to think about it anymore. As long as we're together, does it really matter where we are?" It did matter. Settling down in the city was my lifelong dream. She knew that. She had forgotten. Claire and I met in college. We were in the same year. We got to know each other through a student club. We started dating in the second half of our sophomore year. Claire was gorgeous and had this incredible, captivating presence about her. She was everything I was looking for. Back then, I didn't know anything at all about her past. I just had a strong feeling from spending time with her that she was interested in me too. And I'm not the type of person to play games or wait around. So I made the most straightforward decision of my life. I asked Claire out. She said yes right away. I had taken a chance and won. She really did like me, and she was always so wonderful to me. We spent a beautiful and memorable time together throughout college. During our last year, Claire asked me what my plans were after graduation. I told her I wanted to go to the big city, make a name for myself, and eventually settle down there. At that very moment, she held my hand tightly and said, "Okay, I'll go with you." That memory somehow played into my dream, and when I woke up, my pillow was completely damp. I'm afraid of the dark, so I automatically rolled over to the other side of the bed. But the familiar warmth of her body wasn't there. That's when I noticed the flashes of lightning and loud thunder outside, with rain pouring down heavily. A terrible realization suddenly hit me. The moment I turned on the light, my worst suspicion was confirmed. Claire was gone. She had left while I was sleeping soundly. In our 3 years of marriage, this had never once happened before. Even on the rare occasions when she absolutely had to leave, she would always give me a warning. She had never, ever snuck out without me knowing. I sank onto the sofa, sitting there for a long time before I even thought to call her. The phone rang just once, and she picked up. My heart already seemed to know the answer, but I still asked, "Where are you right now?" No answer. I pulled the phone away from my ear and saw that the call had been deliberately disconnected. Just as I was about to dial again, Claire called me back. I paused for a second before swiping to answer. He's only a patient. Why did you have to be so demanding and say all those terrible things to him? Don't you realize he can't handle being upset? Liam, I'm so disappointed in you right now. Claire hung up abruptly. I felt like I had just been hit by lightning, my chest tightening painfully. Sleep was completely out of the question. Now, I sat in the living room until the sun came up. If I hadn't needed to go to work soon, I probably would have just sat there feeling numb all day. I went to the kitchen and made myself a quick breakfast for one. Before I could even finish eating, Claire came back. The atmosphere in the apartment instantly turned icy. She put down her coat, walked over to me, and said, "Honey?" I ignored her completely, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. After finishing the last bite of my egg, I got up and walked into the kitchen. Claire followed me in there. James tried to take his own life. I paused for a fraction of a second, then went back to washing my plate and fork. I was just so upset at the time, I just assumed you were the one who made that nasty call to him. I am so sorry, honey. I shouldn't have accused you without knowing the facts. She continued, "Yell at me, do whatever you need to, just please don't ignore me." I continued to act as if I hadn't heard a single word. I put the clean dishes back in their place and walked out of the kitchen. But Claire grabbed me from behind, wrapping her arms tightly around my waist. "I was wrong, okay? I promise it will never happen again. Please don't be mad at me, all right? Is that the only issue here?" I broke free from her hold. "Do you honestly think I don't know where you've been going these past few nights?" I didn't want to hear any of her excuses. I grabbed my bag from the wall hook and immediately left for work. Just before quitting time, Claire finally sent me a message. "I admit it, I have been going to James's place these past few days, but it's only because he was having a depressive episode. As his doctor, I couldn't just leave him alone. Plus, I'm the only person he knows here in the city. If the situation was reversed, I believe you would do the same thing for a friend. I didn't tell you the whole truth because I was afraid you would misunderstand what was going on." I didn't reply to her. But that evening, I received a call from Alex. He said Claire was extremely drunk. I couldn't just leave her there. But when I arrived at the location, I discovered that James was there too. I asked Alex what was happening, and he explained that our co-workers were having a farewell party for Claire. "Then why is James here?" I asked. "People were allowed to bring a guest. Weren't you supposed to be working late tonight?" Alex explained, "Claire brought James instead. Don't worry, man. I was watching them the entire time. Nothing inappropriate happened." But I hadn't been working late at all, and I had never told Claire that I was. A wave of bitter disappointment washed over me. But when I saw James, I quickly pushed the feeling away. That's just how it is. No matter how hurt you are, you never show it in front of a rival. I took Claire from his arms and gave James a forced, tight smile. "I'll take it from here." James, still trying to be helpful, added, "Claire has a very sensitive stomach. Make her some honey water when you get home." Hearing that, I stopped. After thinking for a moment, I turned back around. "Mr. James, didn't you know? My wife's stomach problems were completely cured 3 years ago." James's face went blank, then flushed a deep red. Back at home, just as I got Claire settled comfortably into bed, her phone buzzed with a notification. I thought it might be Alex checking to see if we had made it home safely. But when I looked at the screen, I saw the message was from James. "Claire, are you completely sure your husband won't be upset that you requested a transfer to Havenwood for me?" Claire had never put a passcode on her phone. James could have easily waited until Claire was awake to say this to her face. But he chose to send it right at this moment, which meant James sent it for me to see. Was this his way of getting back at me for embarrassing him earlier? He won. That single sentence truly made my heart ache so much I could barely take a breath. I honestly felt like I could have collapsed right then and there. The final date for Claire's job transfer was confirmed. It was set for the following week. When Claire called me, I was at my friend Alex's apartment. I didn't know what to say. Should I say, okay? Or maybe, got it? I didn't want to say either one. Claire was quiet for a moment, before she asked very cautiously, "Are you still angry, honey? I truly know I was wrong about everything." She continued, "If you don't forgive me soon, I'm going to have to use the makeup coupon you gave me back then." I had given her the makeup coupon when we were in college. Back then, I guess I was overly confident because of love, and I would get angry over the smallest things. Whenever I got mad, I would actually threaten to break up with her. The longest we ever broke up for was 2 entire months. Claire must have gotten tired of being the one to always reach out first, because she stopped contacting me that time. And I was too proud to beg her to get back together. Until one day, Claire was waiting for me, looking really miserable, outside my dorm building. She asked me if I wasn't mad anymore. I nodded, and she immediately threw her arms around me. In a voice mixed with deep hurt and lingering resentment, she said, "Can we please stop bringing up breaking up every single time we argue?" I replied, "No, we can't. Emotions are the most difficult thing to control. Sometimes what you're thinking isn't what comes out of your mouth." Hearing that, Claire looked even more devastated. Her eyes welled up with tears, glistening. She told me that during our 2-month breakup, she kept waiting for me to unblock her, waiting for me to try and fix things. But it never happened. And every time I saw her on campus, I would pretend she wasn't even there. Claire got more and more worked up as she spoke, which started attracting a small group of students. I had to quickly pull her over to a quiet pavilion. "How about this?" I suggested. "I'll give you a makeup coupon. Every time we make up after a fight, I'll give you a new one. You can use it the next time you make me angry." But I only ever gave Claire that one single coupon, because after that, she rarely ever made me truly angry. Even when we fought, it never got to the point where we would break up. Claire was always the first one to resolve our problems quickly. I asked her once, "Why are you always the one giving in to me?" She smiled and said, "Didn't you give me the coupon?" I laughed at her response. "I don't want to use it yet," she said. "I'm saving it for something big." "Are you sure I should use it now?" Claire's voice pulled me back to the present moment. This whole conversation felt ridiculous. I moved the phone away from my ear, ready to hang up, but then I heard her say, "I'm using the makeup coupon. Honey, you're a man of your word, right? Come on down. I'm already downstairs here at Alex's apartment." I went back home with Claire. After all, I had made a promise, and I couldn't go back on my word now. There were less than 3 days left until the following week. So as soon as we got home, Claire and I immediately started packing up our apartment. We gave things we couldn't take with us to neighbors and friends. The big furniture and appliances we shipped ahead. The apartment was a rental, so we just had to move our personal belongings out. The rest of our stuff would just wait to be loaded into the car trunk next week. Time seemed to fly by, and Monday arrived in a flash. Claire was up very early. I thought she was taking luggage downstairs, but when I asked, she said she was going to pick up James so they could all go together. She even had the nerve to say, "It's on the way for me, and there's plenty of space in the car. It'll be nice to have an extra person on the road for support." What could I possibly say? She had already made the decision without me. "I'm almost ready to head out," she said. "Honey, you just need to grab your important papers. Leave all the rest to me, okay?" "Okay." After hanging up, I did one final check to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything critical. Once I was sure, I left the apartment we had lived in for 3 years. About 20 minutes later, I received a call from Claire. Where are you? I don't see you anywhere. At the office, I said, gripping my phone tightly. Claire, I didn't quit my job. You mean your resignation wasn't accepted yet? That's right, I said flatly. On the other end, Claire seemed to let out a breath of relief. Her voice immediately became cheerful. I have to formally register for my new position the day after tomorrow. Honey, how about this? I'll drive over first, get everything officially set up, and then I'll come back to get you. By then, your resignation should be completely processed. Don't worry. I'll be back in a week at the latest. I won't make you wait for too long. I let out a quiet chuckle. Okay, after hanging up, I went straight back to work. At 7:00 p.m., Claire sent me a text message to let me know she had successfully arrived in Havenwood. She was currently having dinner. Afraid I would jump to the wrong conclusion, Claire even sent a photograph. Don't worry, honey. It's just me, your wife. Are you off work now? Did you eat properly? First day apart, and I miss you so much already. Claire's words were sweet and loving, but in the reflection on her spoon, I could clearly see James's silhouette. James wasn't hard to recognize. He had been wearing a white shirt both times I had seen him, and this time was no different. His hair was a bit long, and combined with his depression, he had a kind of sickly, delicate look about him. He really did fit the part of her perfect, long-lost love. I replied to Claire with a simple K, and didn't look at my phone again after that. It wasn't until later that night, when I wanted to scroll through some videos, that I saw she had tried to video call me several times. I sent her a question mark. A video call immediately popped up on my screen. I didn't answer the video. Instead, I switched it over to a voice call. Claire, however, had her camera turned on. She looked a little annoyed. Honey, why have you been so standoffish and dismissive today? You didn't even answer any of my calls. I was busy with work, that's all. You've changed, Liam? You used to always try to comfort me, but now you don't even… I was starting to get annoyed, so I interrupted her. If there's nothing else important, I'm going to hang up now. I still have a mountain of work I need to finish. With that, I ended the call. I didn't give her a chance to react or speak further. Claire seemed to sense that something was deeply wrong, and quickly sent a question mark text message. I pretended not to see it, and she didn't push any further. But I never expected that the very next afternoon, Claire would actually show up at my office building. At that exact moment, the intern I was training was asking to take me out to dinner as a thank you. I was originally going to say no, but she was so insistent that I finally agreed to it. She was a young woman named Maya. But Claire, for some reason, immediately jumped to the wrong conclusion. She thought Maya was trying to flirt with me, grabbed my hand tightly, and loudly declared, "He's married! To me! So you need to stay away from him. Otherwise, I can't guarantee what I'll do." That last sentence definitely sounded like a threat, but the girl was genuinely just an intern. All she wanted to do was buy me a simple meal. What had she done wrong? I shot Claire a hard look. She's a new intern at the company. We just have a professional relationship. It's not what you think at all. One thing about Claire is that she is generally reasonable. Once she realized she had completely misunderstood the situation, she immediately apologized to the intern. So Claire was forcefully added to our dinner plans, which, of course, also meant the total cost of the meal went up significantly. I wasn't going to let the intern get taken advantage of financially. As we were leaving, I made Claire pay the entire bill. On the drive back to the hotel, Claire finally asked why she had come all the way back today. Honey, have you been in a really bad mood these past few days? I feel like you've been getting more and more distant from me. I turned to look at her. I don't know if it was guilt, but Claire immediately avoided my gaze and looked out the window. I forced a smile. It's probably just the stress from quitting my job. I had, in fact, officially submitted my resignation to the company. That awful boss of mine had taken a major project I had worked incredibly hard to land and handed it over to his new fiancée, who had just been hired into the company with zero experience. If the company wasn't going to treat me fairly, why should I stay? Besides, a major tech firm had already made me an offer. As soon as I resigned, I could start working with them. The salary and benefits were miles better than my current job. That's right, I didn't quit because of Claire. And I certainly wasn't going to some place called Havenwood. I was staying right here in the big city to continue chasing my dream. Claire took a call and then left, saying she had to get back for work. Before she drove away, she said she'd come back to get me once I had a firm end date for my job. I didn't call her out on the fact that she was really just going back for James. I was afraid she would just argue that James was part of her job responsibilities, and how could he not be? She had even applied for a transfer for him. I found out from Alex that James's medical condition was very difficult to treat, and he mostly had to rely on himself to slowly get better. Therefore, it didn't really matter whether he was being treated in the city or not. He might as well go back to his small hometown, where at least the stress wasn't as intense. I just never expected Claire would be willing to go back with him. I didn't know what Claire was truly thinking when it came to James, and at this point, I couldn't be bothered to guess anymore. Claire was no longer a part of my life plans. A week later, my resignation was completely official. As I walked out of the office building for the last time, Claire happened to call. I didn't want to answer the phone. I had plans to celebrate with my friends. But I was afraid she would just keep calling, so I picked up. Claire spoke first, her voice filled with apology. "Honey, you remember James, right? His depression has gotten much worse. It's reached a point where he absolutely cannot be left alone. His parents are far away and can't get back right away. I just can't bring myself to leave him here right now. If you manage to finalize your resignation during this time, could you maybe just take a taxi over here by yourself?" Even though I had already decided to let go of her, my heart still ached hearing this. After all, this was the person I had loved for 8 years. You can't just give up on someone that easily. "Honey, sure." Claire sighed in relief and asked, "Are you officially done with your job now?" "Not yet," I lied to her. "Probably another 2 or 3 days still. I'll head over as soon as it's completely done." "Okay, then I'll wait for you here, my love." "Okay." I didn't go to Havenwood until that Saturday. I stayed there for just one night and tried some of the local food options. Overall, it was just all right. Not as great as Claire had made it out to be. But one thing was true. Life was certainly slow here. But I don't love a slow life. I much prefer the excitement, bright lights, and nightlife of the big city. The next morning, I checked out of my hotel before calling Claire. It rang for a long time with no answer. I tried again, and this time someone actually picked up. But the voice on the other end wasn't Claire's. It was James's. I was both surprised and yet not surprised at all. Claire was always by James's side, so it wasn't strange that he would answer her phone. James, however, sounded a little annoyed. "Claire just fell asleep. Call her back this afternoon." "Fine." Just as I was about to hang up, James stopped me. "I want to meet with you." "Okay." James wanting to meet me was just like him answering the phone, both surprising and yet completely expected. He had probably wanted to talk to me for a while now. He just never had the right chance. James arrived before I did. As soon as I sat down, he called the waiter over, playing the part of the gracious host. I didn't touch anything on the table. I was just here to handle a piece of necessary business, so I got straight to the point. "Spit it out. What did you want to talk to me about?" I could see James flinch slightly. He was probably taken aback by how direct I was being. He gripped the glass on the table, looked at me, and after a moment's hesitation, finally spoke. "Liam, can you please give Claire back to me?" "Sure. What did you just say?" That wasn't James's voice. It was Claire's. I hadn't expected Claire to be here as well. James was even more stunned than I was. He shot up from his seat. He tugged on the corner of Claire's sleeve and said anxiously, "Claire, let me explain. It's not what you think." Claire ignored him, her eyes completely focused on me. She repeated her question. "What exactly did you say?" I collected myself and smiled faintly. I said, "Sure. I'm willing to let her go. Is there a problem with that?" Hearing this, James tugged on Claire's sleeve again. He seemed desperate to explain something, but Claire pushed his hand away. "Get out!" James reluctantly left the cafe. He kept looking back every few steps, as if he were genuinely afraid Claire would misunderstand him and ruin his image in her eyes. The moment he was out the door, I took a pre-signed document out of my bag. "Claire, let's get a divorce now." Claire's expression froze for a second. "You're playing a joke on me, right?" "I'm not joking. I'm completely serious." I looked her directly in the eyes. "Claire, I don't want to be with you anymore. Let's just have a clean break from each other." I said it word for word. Only then did Claire realize I wasn't fooling around. She asked cautiously, "Is it because I've been neglecting you lately?" "I'll change, Liam. I promise I can change. I swear it won't happen again. Just please don't divorce me." By the end, her voice was trembling, and her eyes were red-rimmed. Whenever Claire made me angry, as soon as she cried and promised it wouldn't happen again, I would immediately feel my heart soften, wipe away her tears, and tell her I forgave her. But not this time. Seeing my total indifference, Claire grew frantic. "Say something, honey. Did I do something really wrong? Tell me, I can change anything for you. Or did James say something bad to you just now? There is absolutely nothing romantic between us. I don't know why he would say those things. I really don't. Please don't divorce me, okay?" Whether he did or didn't doesn't matter to me anymore. I placed the divorce papers neatly on the table and said calmly, "Remember to sign them." With that, I walked away without a single glance back at her. Before I boarded my flight, Claire called me countless times. I only replied with a single text message. "Once the mandatory cooling-off period is over, I'll see you at the courthouse." Then, I temporarily blocked her on every platform, but I never expected that as soon as I got off the plane, I would receive 2 texts from Claire, sent from a phone she had borrowed. "I am not getting a divorce, Liam, and you can forget about it too." I replied with a cold, "Then we'll just drag it out. We'll stay married without any love or connection." During the mandatory cooling-off period, Claire was constantly trying to find me. But I had a new job and a new apartment. I didn't tell anyone where I was, except for a few close friends. Not even Alex knew my exact location, because if he knew, he would definitely tell Claire. He thought our problems didn't need to lead to a divorce. But he wasn't me. He didn't know I had reached my absolute breaking point. Since Claire couldn't locate me, she started using different phone numbers to text and call me. I couldn't block all of them. Out of pure desperation, I finally went to the phone company and canceled my old number entirely. Only then did I get a few days of much-needed peace. But Claire and I were still legally married. Through some persistent means, she found me anyway. That day, I was having a working dinner with a very important client. Claire's sudden appearance was a completely unpredictable event. I was terrified she would somehow ruin the business deal I had worked so hard to close. But she didn't interfere. She just sat quietly at a nearby table, waiting for me to finish my meeting. In that case, I figured I could sit down and have a mature, civil conversation with her. After all, it was just a divorce. Plenty of people in the world get divorced and manage to remain friends afterward. Then I almost laughed to myself. That thought was truly a bit too unrealistic. After my client left, Claire was still sitting there, watching me intently. For a moment, I was transported back to the first time I was negotiating a project. Claire had sat there silently, just like now, cheering me on. With her presence, I always felt a deep sense of calm and more confident that I could successfully land the deal. Claire was like my anchor, soothing all my nerves and insecurities. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't even notice Claire walk over, not until she called my name in a hoarse voice. "Honey?" I looked up at her. From a distance, I hadn't been able to see her clearly. Up close, I realized how incredibly worn out Claire looked. Her face was pale, with noticeable dark circles under her eyes. Her once meticulously styled hair was now a bit messy. Seeing her like this, for some reason, I felt a heavy knot in my stomach. In my mind, Claire was always a refined, perfectly put-together person. Now she looked like a ghost of herself. I never imagined that asking for a divorce would affect her this badly, but I didn't feel any regret. "What do you want to say to me?" "Go ahead." "Liam, She clearly had so much she wanted to say. But at this moment, Claire hesitated completely. She poured herself a glass of water and drank it all in one go. I thought she was finally going to talk about the divorce. Instead, Claire finished the story that Alex didn't even know. She said James developed depression because of her actions. Back then, after their parents forcibly separated them, her phone was immediately confiscated, so she never received the messages James had sent her. James thought Claire was deliberately ignoring him, and that's what triggered the beginning of his depression. Because of his illness, James missed the college entrance exams. After retaking the year, he only got accepted into an expensive third-tier private college. But his family had already spent all their savings on his initial treatment. There was no money left for his tuition. So James dropped out of school, working odd jobs while desperately trying to get treatment. But he never got better. In fact, he got progressively worse. A doctor in Havenwood told him, "An illness of the heart can only be cured by the one who caused it." So he tracked down you. Claire nodded slowly. Hearing about everything he went through, I felt so incredibly guilty and responsible. I just wanted to make it up to him somehow. "And so you agreed to go to Havenwood with him?" Claire's expression froze for a few seconds. Then she nodded again. "Everything that happened to him was indirectly because of me. I couldn't just ignore him. But Liam, my feelings for him are purely out of guilt. Nothing more than that. What if he never fully recovers? What will you do then, Claire?" Claire's gaze briefly faltered. In that split second of her hesitation, I already knew the answer. So I only asked her if she had finally signed the divorce papers. Claire shook her head, as if answering no to both my last question and the one before it. But I didn't want to waste any more words on her. I simply threw out a final, "Then I'll see you in court," and immediately left the restaurant. What I didn't expect was that Claire had only let me leave on purpose so she could follow me back to my new home. How could someone be so completely shameless? Even after I had security escort her away several times, she was still standing there outside my building. I was at my wits' end. "What the hell do you want from me?" "I don't want a divorce, Liam. As long as we don't get a divorce, I'll do absolutely anything you ask." "What about James?" "I won't see him anymore." "Ha!" I let out a cold laugh. "Putting aside whether you could even do that, it's impossible for us to reconcile anyway. The most important thing between a husband and wife is total honesty. The very moment you started lying to me, we could never go back to how we were." Claire looked at me. Her eyes slowly turned red, and then she covered her face with her hands and completely broke down sobbing. A hoarse, broken voice came from between her fingers. "As long as you're willing, Liam." "I'm not willing to try again, and I can't accept my wife constantly putting me second to another man, no matter what the excuse is. Let's just end it here, Claire." I didn't hesitate anymore. I turned and started to walk away, but Claire threw her arms around me from behind, gripping me tight, so tight it was suffocating. Something wet and sticky soaked the back of my shirt. "The makeup coupon! I want to use it now!" Claire was clinging to me like a drowning person grasping for a piece of driftwood. "You said that if I used it, no matter how mad you were, you would make up with me. I'm using it now." For a moment, my mind flashed back 7 years to the time Claire and I had our worst fight. I had asked her why she would rather suffer than use the makeup coupon. She had said, "I'm saving it, for when you try to divorce me someday." "Claire, don't you know?" I said to her, word by word. "This coupon only works for people who are still completely in love with each other. And besides, you already used it. And I never gave you another one." Epilogue. Claire's perspective. The day I was on duty at the clinic, a familiar figure suddenly walked into my line of sight. His name was James. The boy I had a crush on when I was young. To be honest, even now, I'm not entirely sure if I ever truly liked him in a romantic way. I just remember that, like me, he loved reading books by Keigo Higashino. We both spent all our free time in the library, hiding in corners to read quietly. We were more like two misfits who had suddenly found a kindred spirit, a friend with the same interests. What I mistook for love in my youth was merely a strong sense of camaraderie with a friend. By the time I finally realized that, it was already far too late. That day, he told me that ever since I transferred schools, he had developed mild depression. He wasn't even able to take the college entrance exams that year. After repeating a year, he only managed to get into an expensive third-tier college. Watching him mock himself like that, I was overcome with deep guilt. I wondered if I had never told him I liked him back then. Would he have ended up like this? But there are no do-overs in life. James then asked about my current life. I told him I was happily married, and I told him all about my wonderful husband, Liam. Being with him, I finally understood what a physical, all-consuming, real love felt like. Even at work, I was constantly thinking about him, wanting to be close to him. We started dating in the second half of our sophomore year. But what no one ever knew was that I had fallen for Liam long before that. It was during freshman orientation. His class was being punished by the drill instructor, forced to run 3 laps around the track. Liam and his roommate slyly slacked off, slipping into our group right next to me. Liam never mentioned it later, so I guess he didn't remember that moment. But I remembered it vividly. That's why when Liam was choosing a student club to join, I followed him there. I don't know if you'd call it a mutual understanding, but just as I was about to confess my feelings, Liam simply asked me out. I had never met such a direct man before. He just straight up asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend. In contrast, I was the complete opposite. I had prepared a long, poetic confession to send him. But before I could send it, my roommate saw it. She teased me about it for 6 months, saying I sounded like some ethereal poet writing such cheesy, overwrought stuff. But people online said it was romantic, so that's what I had tried to learn. James's depression was much more severe than I had initially imagined, and my guilt only grew stronger every day. So every time he called me, I would rush over immediately to help. But I was afraid Liam would be angry, so I didn't tell him any of this. Later, James said he wanted to go back to Havenwood. He asked me if I would go with him. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to say no to him. So I secretly applied for a job transfer without telling Liam. I knew Liam would be upset, so I waited until the transfer was officially approved before telling him. I thought it was just a change of workplace, but I never expected Liam's reaction to be so intense. Many years later, I finally understood why Liam was so determined to divorce me back then. I had completely forgotten the promise I made to him, all for a stranger who was full of lies. Because of James's faked suicide attempt, Liam and I had a huge fight. To be more precise, I falsely accused Liam of something terrible. At that moment, I was just so angry and upset. I wasn't thinking straight at all. When I later found out I had completely misunderstood the situation, I wanted to slap myself for my stupidity. To try and make up, I used the makeup coupon Liam had given me back then. We reconciled, and Liam agreed to go to Havenwood with me. But he lied to me. He told me he wanted a divorce and handed me the signed papers. Only then did I realize he wasn't joking around. I panicked. I was absolutely terrified. I didn't want a divorce at all. So I begged Liam. I begged him not to divorce me. But he seemed to have completely made up his mind. I didn't know what else to do, so I could only shamelessly drag my feet, absolutely refusing to sign the divorce papers. I thought that one day he would eventually forgive me for everything. I was wrong again. He was willing to sue me just to get a divorce. Liam was dead set on divorcing me. It was a single sentence from Alex that finally woke me up. To you, it might not seem like a big deal, Claire. But if you were in Liam's shoes, could you honestly accept it? It was a massive wake-up call. If the roles were completely reversed, I know I couldn't accept it. I had even felt a little jealous when Liam just had dinner with that intern. And here I was, having done so much for James. I finally realized how terribly wrong I had been all along. But Liam wouldn't forgive me. Even when I knelt down and begged him, he remained completely unmoved. I had no other choice but to use the makeup coupon. He gave it to me in our junior year. He said that as long as I used it, he would make up with me. But I had forgotten one crucial detail. That coupon had already been used. I had used it to force Liam to come to Havenwood with me in the first place. After the divorce was final, James came to find me. By then, I had already learned the whole truth from a friend who was a colleague. The world really works in funny ways. James's primary doctor in Havenwood was one of my college classmates. She told me that James had only developed depression 2 years ago. The real cause wasn't my unanswered message at all, but rather severe domestic abuse. That's when I knew James had lied to me about everything. And because I felt guilty over a lie, I lost the man I truly loved.